important movie. This is going to be a discussion that's going to occur. And really, we just want to hear any reactions that you might have, anything you'd like to share with us. I'm Lenny Jason. I'm at DePaul University. I do basic research in this area. And I'll just let everybody else introduce themselves.
I'm Dr. Marcie Zinn. I work with Lenny. I do cognitive research with my husband, Mark, who is getting me something to drink right now.
I am Tess, Balzer. My husband is on the board of SMCI, and I'm the patient.
And I'm Ceil. I introduced myself before.
And I'm Amy Mooney. I am the mother of a child that has ME, and my husband here is filming. But
And Suson Cohen.
Hi, I introduced myself before. I've had ME/CFS for 43 years, and my daughter, who is now 30, has been sick since she was 12.
I have ME also.
So at this point, we have a microphone. How far will the microphone go back? Will it go
not super far, but if we can meet you halfway.
Okay, if anybody might like to just give any reflections, comments, thoughts that they had about the movie, that'd be great. Yes.
Hi, my name's Anita, and my sister has ME. Interesting how she, this, like everyone else, the 17 doctors, nobody believed it, and she finally found a physician here in Chicago who really believes her and supports her a lot. And it's very hard because there's of course the trend of everyone who seems to have the same symptoms, but there are so many different symptoms that still present, and the flares, and then the not flares, and not knowing what to call it, or it's so hard being the person like the husband was to support and when to say the right things. And it's difficult because sometimes I get frustrated and not knowing what to say, or wanting to always be on that side. And it's sometimes I get frustrated and don't know what to say. It's very hard. So as a support person, I want to always be there, and I live away, and I don't know what to do, but it's so true with losing friends and losing support, and who, I don't know if there's any support groups, but it's very hard, I think, to guide her to a support group, because I think that's uncomfortable too. I don't know, I'm just speaking out. I don't even know what to say, but I think the movie was phenomenal, and I want everybody in the world to see it, and I wanted to get an award. I think it was phenomenal. I don't know.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. And it turns out that you asked about support groups. Well, Barbara, do you want to introduce yourself? No. There is a support group in Chicago, and those people who might be interested in learning more about it. Barbara, do you want to just kind of raise your hand so you can talk to her maybe after?
Randy is also here.
And Randy, do you want to say, would you like to make some comments about the support group in Chicago? That'd be fantastic. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Randa with the CFCCC.org, which is Chronic Fatigue, Fibromyalgia, and Chemical Sensitivity Coalition of Chicago. It's been here for a while. I've stepped in after Barbara, and we do a newsletter trying to reach the people that can't get out and can't see the world, or even can't get near computers nor even have one. It's really important to know that there's a community out there and you can connect. So if you have anyone who's interested, please get in touch with us. We'll be here, probably not for the next film. I have to skedaddle. I'll be here until the next film starts, but you're welcome to join me. It's cfccc.org is the website. So you can go in and get information to contact us.
I've passed out some of the brochures. I will leave them outside afterwards so that anyone who didn't get one can still pick it up.
Great. Would anybody else in the audience might like to share their experience of unrest, or if they have a personal experience with either being a caregiver or have this illness themselves? Yes. Yes. Well,
Hello, my name is Elaine Clemens, and I have been aware that I have chronic fatigue syndrome for, I would say, about 12 years. I was working, loved my job, but at a certain time I got so very tired, I didn't know what to do. I had to quit my job, so I told them. They said, no, you can't. But then I tried to, and I said, I have to. And I didn't tell them what was wrong with me. But ever since then, I went around to all doctors, Lake Shore, everywhere. Eat more vegetables. I went to one natural healing doctor, and they said that I had this condition. I didn't understand it, never heard about it. I remember being in my house, I got so tired, and I was so tired, I lived alone. I was eating out of food out of cans, I couldn't cook. And I was just too tired even to finish a can of food. So of course my immune system, I didn't know that you had a low immune system, went down, I caught pneumonia. And when they had to take the fluid out, my valve broke, and I've been having problems with that also. I love watching this, I'm very glad I came. I didn't know I would shed tears, but the subconscious is stronger than the conscious, and you have to let that out in order to grow. Thank you so much.
thank you for sharing those comments and about your own situation and also about the reactions to the film. Jen Bria, as you all know, founded an organization and has been very involved in the advocacy movement, not only in this country, but in other places too. So I hope that you folks think about that organization as you think about getting involved and possibly helping. In the Chicago area, it's very difficult to find really knowledgeable physicians who can treat patients. And the situation is like this many places around the world, and that's a significant problem. The healthcare needs for this population are really significant, and yet they have a lack of access to resources, and that's a major problem. Any other comments that anybody would like to share about either how they felt, any emotions that they felt during this particular? Yes. Yeah.
I've been sick most of my life, and I'm very bad now. And I just thank God for all of you and the movie, because I don't feel alone.
Great. Well, thank you for even getting to the movie to sort of get here, and also to share that this is something that you don't feel alone when you see so many other people that are really struggling with this issue, looking for care, looking for better ways of treating this, looking for more funding, looking for all the things that really the movie talked about. Any other kind of people? Yes.
I'm ashamed to say I felt really angry because I don't understand it. It seemed like in the movie that there were ways to diagnose this and that there were ways to recognize it and that there are billions of people who have it. So why is it so hard to understand and to find these people and to connect them with resources?
That's an excellent question. They estimate there might be as many as 1 million people in this country, maybe 17 million people worldwide. Those are some of the estimates that people have made. Lots of folks are ill. Lots of folks, as this woman over here mentioned, are too ill to get out to the public to protest and to make their voices known, because 25% of patients are actually homebound or even bedbound, as you saw in the movie. So that's one of the issues. Yes, we have.
It's okay, I think I can be heard.
No, let's get you on the mic, because that way they're kind of taking little pictures of this. I'll keep you. And this is actually someone in Chicago who knows a lot about this illness.
Except I'm a psychiatrist, and I don't think anyone wants to come and see me. Anyway, no, I just wanted to answer this woman's comment about being angry. I think that it was an excellent movie. I think it just, personified the devastation in so many people's lives. I had CFS, and I lost it 15 years. my son has just been recently diagnosed with, just recently approved by Social Security disability for CFS after he got sick in India as a college, visiting program. But what I wanted to speak to is the anger, because I think that there was a misinformation that Nancy Klimas seemed to refer to as if there was some sort of marker of natural killer cells, and there is no marker, and that I think that her comments about the mitochondria is a theory. There is not any data. If there was, we'd be able to do a test and we'd be able to basically not have the problems of Social Security disability. And it wouldn't be called, my last comment though for Lenny is, what happened to the new title of exercise intolerance? That's all.
So the Institute of Medicine, thank you, David, for those comments. The Institute of Medicine is proposed a new name, SCID, and I'm not sure that's really got a lot of traction at this point. So I think the term ME is certainly what the patients prefer, and certainly that's a struggle ongoing as to what to call this, and maybe there are different illnesses here that need to be referred to. Thank you for sharing also about your story and also about your son. And there is a lot of anger in the patient community, and really part of it is because this is a really underfunded illness. About maybe $6 million a year, whereas hair pattern baldness, like what I have, gets more money, if you can believe it. Not that I want to grow hair, but it's nice. It would be nice if there was more money for this area. Now, there is some good news, and that is that the NIH has recently funded 3 centers that will do, hopefully, very good research in the future. So there is a turn that has occurred, and I think that's good for all of us. But the fact still is, there are not treatment centers around the world. If you have MS, if you have cancer, if you have a number of other illnesses, you can go to a local place and get diagnosed and treated. That can't happen in this illness, and that's a major tragedy. People should have access to care, and they don't. And we also need more research to find those biological markers to then basically have an opportunity to give more credibility and legitimacy to this illness. So we certainly have a long way to go, but there has been some improvements, and certainly this film is one example of it. And the advocacy movement that Jen Bria has been really pushing, as well as Carol Head and many other people who have been kind of working on this area for many, many years. Any other comments that we have? I know that, yes?
I know that
We're going to bring a mic over to you, okay?
I know I already spoke. Again, my name is Anita. It seems that the way that media gets most represented is when a significant actor or actress has it, such as Lyme's disease was most brought out with Yolanda Hadid. Are there any actors or actresses that we know of that has ME, and if so, if we can bring that to light? I know there was at one point that Cher was questioned to have had it, but it was under wraps. The other thing is, do we know if this film is going to be brought to one of the award shows, and if not, is there a way that we have access to somebody who knows somebody that it can be brought to a film festival, Cannes Film Festival or something like that? Because I think that is really something that usually brings people much more awareness to it. If the CDC is aware of it, that it should be brought to more public health. If you get somebody who has more money, it's one of those where you have a gala and more money in the audience because of what people wear. They purchase that. What do we usually say, that if you took the money of what people wore and put that towards the auction than what they donate? I'm just,
Sure, good ideas. And by the way, there's some material out in the front where you can actually see some of the festivals this film has been at and actually won a number of awards. So it's actually run that route. Now it's being released publicly, and hopefully will be on maybe a PBS station in the future, so it'll be even more accessible to people. Lady Gaga, by the way, just came out saying she had fibromyalgia. So, you know, we do see people. Keith Jarrett is another person who has, you know, publicly indicated he has this illness. Any other kind of people who kind of know that folks that have gone out? Yes? Laura Hildebrand is another extremely famous person from Seabiscuit fame and other books. So yeah, there are some people, but this is interesting. This is an illness where people really want to disassociate from because there's so much stigma.
But it's interesting, her husband worked with Oprah, and yet there was no connection with Oprah. If somehow Jennifer's husband connected back to Oprah, even though there was like a little blip where he showed her face that he worked with her, and yet that was in the film. I wasn't sure if there was like kind of a grab.
Yeah, I'm not sure about Oprah, but certainly if you know, any way of getting more publicity is certainly extremely important, and having people who are famous kind of get behind this movement certainly, I think, is important, as with other illnesses.
And I think the film has, Jen has a plan, I guess, for release, that she put it through a lot of festivals first in order to qualify for, say, the academies and things like that. You have to first show at festivals, then theaters, and so there are stages and steps that have to be followed. And she will be, I guess the film will be released on iTunes in October. So that will be able to be streamed out to many more people, and then PBS in January. So there were, I guess, steps, and there is a logical plan behind how she is trying to release this.
And I'm certainly not trying to take away from the suffering of what people in this room and what their families are going through. I'm just trying to bring awareness a little bit further, because I'm in the healthcare field, and I'm actually shocked to know that it's twice the number of MS as a healthcare worker, which I treat and have not exposed myself. And I have fibromyalgia, but not ME, but I'm shocked to hear the number of people with ME, and I'm just shocked. I'm just shocked and appalled by the lack of funds.
And as the movie makes a certain movement in the public knowledge of it, there's also an effort to reach medical facilities. So there are different campaigns to reach medical facilities, and also just trying to get it out into the schools so that doctors are becoming more aware of it and are saying the name and recognizing the symptoms, because a lot of illnesses are overlapping. And so some people will fight to say, no, it's this or it's that. And so those borders need to be kind of fine-tuned, and biomarkers are one of those pieces that once there's a biomarker, then you can start making clinical diagnoses.
Also, Jen Brea, who did UNREST from her bed, started what is called ME Action, and it's ME Action that brought the Chicago protest last year in September. So Amy and I took part in putting that together. We had a wonderful response. I'm kind of sorry to see Lenny was there to speak and Marcie was there to speak. So I'm kind of sorry to see that we didn't make the film. But if you want to read more about all of this, because there's a tremendous, movement going on worldwide with all of us who have gotten active with this, you'll find a community there and a lot of information.
I'd like to maybe, Tess, do you want to give, will you take a moment just to say, you're a mom and you have an illness,
Sure.
and just say maybe what that has done to your role as a caregiver. You can maybe talk on illness as a caregiver.
Sure. In a lot of ways I don't feel qualified to even talk about it. I probably fall into the category of pretty high functioning. If you put me next to my peers, I'm not high functioning. I have a full-time job and I work like 50 hours a week, but I come home and I sleep. So when my son was born in 2016, I took 7 months off to be home with him. And that was like the sickest I've probably been in a long time. And it was a lot of learning how to let go and how to ask for help and how to be okay with the fact that I can't be my son's everything. And I think as all moms, we want to be our kids' everything. We want to be at every event and there for every milestone, and I'm not. And I'm not going to be. And I think that's probably the hardest thing that I've had to wrestle with. Now we have an au pair who lives with us, and some days my kid is more happy to see her than he is to see me. And
It's not forever.
no, it's not. And then he's gonna hate me plenty, right? When he's 16.
Don't worry about it. He won't remember her name.
So it's tough. It's a unique position. It's hard enough being a first-time mom, period. Like, it doesn't matter what you have going on in the background, it's hard. But then you add this extra layer of isolation, and it's definitely, I'm sorry.
And I'm sure one of the aspects is that you don't want to show your community what you look like on your bad days, but your son gets to see that often. So that's something, that's a truth that maybe is hard for them to have to deal with too, or for
Yeah,
being a mom.
it's interesting. I don't have a lot of mom friends because I can't participate in the social aspect of having kids. And honestly, my husband is just like too tired to go make us parent friends and work and take care of our son, because he does the bulk of the child care during the week and on the weekends. And so, yeah, it's hard to figure out where I fit in all the communities, really.
Amy, how about yourself?
Oh, well, it's definitely a juggle to have a sick child and to be the caregiver for an individual who still has personality, and you really want to develop their identity, but it's something that my daughter, who's 12, is kind of trying to figure out who she is and what she's going to be and how she's going to handle her illness, because as we get further into this illness, it's not going away. So it's something that is a lifelong readjustment to your ideas and your beliefs. So, Susan, would you like to have a moment?
Hi, well, I guess I'm at the other end, not at the baby end, but my daughter got sick when she was 12, and to bring this close to home, last night, I was home with her for a couple hours trying to talk her into not giving up on life like this. And, hearing her sorrow, her isolation, her pain levels. We had just had a phone consultation earlier in the day with a MECFS expert for 2 hours, but even hearing her relate all her symptoms to the doctor broke my heart. But there's also a deja vu, because I can remember being in my early 20s and bedbound, and my mother talking me out of suicidal thoughts. Not every day, but when you're sick and in pain for days and days on end, and back in 1974, there wasn't even a name for this illness. Now there's no diagnosis, but then there was no name. You were just an individual out in the desert, and you were told all kinds of crazy things by all kinds of crazy doctors. But it's a double whammy when you're still ill and you're trying to convince your daughter to go forward with the same illness. It breaks my heart.
Great. By the way, just wanted to mention that one of the husband of Jen, Omar, is going to be in Chicago for 2 shows this week. So if you want to actually meet him, is it Tuesday and Wednesday he'll be here?
The 3rd and the 4th. The 3rd and the 4th.
The third and the fourth. So we will kind of encourage you, if you'd like to actually meet one of the people who's portrayed in the movie and actually was very involved in, I think, developing the movie. So we probably are getting a little bit toward that time. Does anybody have the time?
5:08.
We might have chance for maybe one last or one or two comments. If anybody kind of out there sort of has wanted to say something and wants to, yeah, we got somebody, okay. Can we-
Just quickly.
Yeah, that's fine.
I was, okay. Will it reach? Okay.
Hi, I'm Mara, and I've had this for, just about 12 years now. I was really surprised at the shame that goes with this illness. I've never been sick with anything before that I would feel, shame about. And it feels to me that aside from always having to explain it and people not believing me, I found a doctor who's very good and supportive, as my sister had mentioned, and I actually did see Dr. Klimas, and I even saw Dr. Lipkin, actually, who was very helpful. But I was looking for specialists just like anyone else, and was having trouble finding them. But that sort of stays with you, because you're always having to explain, and people are always basically looking at you like, they don't believe you. The other thing is that how people just sort of do disappear. It's really only a few, a handful of close people that believe you, that support you, and that you're forever grateful for. And a lot of people do just fade into the woodwork. Your life goes by, they wouldn't even know where you were. And then the only last comment is, Dr. Jason, I actually spoke to you years ago. Do you see a big difference with your, and know about, your research? I understand about the funding, and it's really horrible. But do you see some changes over all these years that you've been doing research?
I think there have been changes, and I think some tremendous progress has been made in a number of areas. One of the people who's a researcher, who happens to be right next to me, who hasn't had a chance to speak, is Dr. Marcie Zinn. I'm going to let her kind of maybe talk about some of her perspective.
What I liked seeing in the movie was the fact that everyone woke up about MS when they got a CT scanner, so you could actually see the white spots, the demyelination in the picture, so they had ocular proof. Well, we have the same proof with CFS. It's not a CT scan, it's something called a QEEG that goes through a lot of transformations, and basically you can see the whole inside of the brain, and you can tell where the brain is deregulated. And so with CFS and ME, the brain is horribly deregulated in a number of major areas. So it explains, not only that, but we can link up the symptoms that the person is reporting to the specific areas that are deregulated in that person's brain. Now you would think that NIH would be all over this. Well, actually they were, because there were two people that developed it at NIH in the 90s, in the Human Brain Project. And but they, when Bush 2 came into office, they dumped that project. But one of the people kept it up. His name is Dr. Bob Thatcher, and he is probably the world's expert in all this. And we're lucky enough to work with him to develop this technology for MECFS. So long story short, we have gotten a long ways, and we can say definitively that this will measure the deregulation of the brain that's causing all the symptoms. We can explain all your symptoms with this. So we're just looking for more funding to keep going with this. But, and we're hoping to convince NIH that they should look at their own history.
Where do you go from there after you know this? Then what happens next?
Well, we're publishing.
If you had the money, if the government gave you money, let's say, what would be next?
Well, we would get a really large sample of people from all over the country to make sure that we would vet this whole process.
If you can find markers, in the brain, in the blood, in other places, you help validate the illness, and you are able to get a diagnosis that mental health, physical health, and your public and the lawyers and the disability people and the folks who are and all the different places that you're involved in with work, family, social. And that's so important to just validate this illness. And that's just a starting point, because once that occurs, then the next important issue, of course, is treatment. And the treatments have to be developed, and there has to be an effort that is sophisticated, because this is the illnesses like this are going to be the challenges for the 21st century for medicine, because we know how to fix a broken arm, and we know how to do those types of things involving kind of fixes for different types of viruses that might affect people with some antivirals. But this illness is multi-system, affecting so many parts of the body. So the clues that we get in medicine and other areas that are going to be so important, and that's why this needs to be funded, because if you go into healthcare, this is going to be one of the driving forces of these types of illnesses that people have. Thank you all. We're a little bit out of time. Oh, we have another question. We're going to give one more person a chance, because we never want to cut Barbara off. Okay, Barbara.
I'm glad to know I'm not going to get cut off.
Okay.
I have two thoughts. The movie is incredible. I do not have ME/CFS. I'm only chemically sensitive, which actually in this situation is a good thing. It's not fun to be chemically sensitive, but I'm very familiar with it, having written the newsletter for 12 years. I knew who all the people were in the pictures and so forth. My advice is, yes, it would be great if we could get someone on Oprah, but tell all your friends, and especially tell every doctor that you see or have seen to see this movie. And make sure you know when it goes on PBS in January, because that's the place most people will see it. That's my comment.
Thank you for that comment. Amy, I'm going to let you make the last comments to say, would you like to make?
I wanted to ask this
There you
woman.
go.
Excuse me, I don't know your name. Yes, the woman right there that just spoke. You mentioned you have an incredible doctor in Chicago. So I think there may be more than one of us that is interested in, if you wouldn't mind sharing the name of that particular person.
I was gonna get
This is a terrible thing to say, but his practice is closed. He's an internist who's an endocrinologist, and he's been my internist. It just so happened to be that he believed in CFS. Well, first what he said was, I have to test you for everything, and then he sent me to lots of doctors who made me feel like a fool. It wasn't his fault, and then he came back and diagnosed me. So, can I somehow ask him first and then share the name?
I guess that's fine. I mean,
Would that be okay?
I don't think it's.
You know what, I guess I could give the name.
I don't think it really matters if you.
Well, you know what, let me give you the name, and then if you'll call and see if you could get in.
Hundreds of people call him, so much the better.
Yeah, that's true, it is true. Okay, I can give you, let me
I've
write
been
you up.
extremely fortunate to have probably the best doctors, but my doctors are all in California where I used to live. There's one at UCLA, and you could go to Montoya at Stanford, but if you go to,
That's what I was gonna say, didn't he find a couple of biomarkers recently?
I haven't know what he found, but I can tell you he's helped me a lot.
No, he just completed
Yeah.
a big research project where he found 2 biomarkers.
Yeah, that's right, he did, he said that. But my physician that gives me the real help is in Los Angeles. He's an incredible person. If you want to fly to LA, it's a good.
So his name is Dr. Mark Stolar, Stolar. He's an internist and an endocrinologist. At Northwestern.
Thank you very much.
But I think the key, I guess, is that a lot of doctors, if they're educated, they can help in many different ways. But I guess, yes, there's a lot of research that needs to be done, but it's getting the word out.
So their next show is going to go on, and we're getting kind of the thing to get off so that they can go on. But if you want to continue talking.